Hello, I'm Mike Fontanopolis. I'm the academic coach for Springdale Public Schools. And today I want to chat with you about how to write a thesis statement for a DBQ. And this will be good for all of our students that are in pre-AP social studies classes. This is good for all of our students who are in an AP World History, AP US History, or AP European History class, and they're writing to a prompt-driven essay regarding the DBQ. And that's the skill that we really want to emphasize here, is how to write to a prompt-driven essay, and how to do that regarding documents and a document-based question. So with that said, let's get to this, and this should take about 10, maybe 12, 13 minutes. I'm going to try and do about 3 documents for you, and then you can spend the rest of the time looking at the other 2 documents, trying to get those together, and then we'll give you a complete full thesis statement at the end when this is all said and done. I've also given you here, you can see that I've given you a link so that you can go and print this off wherever, or if you can do that, or if you want to just look at it like on a phone next to you. But this is the rubric. This is coming straight off of the 2020 Advanced Placement World History exam in May. I had the privilege of being a reader again this year there. This was my 14th year to be a reader, and I'm actually a table leader for the College Board in that regard. So that's what I'm going to do, is go through the high points of what I thought was important for a student to see on how these were scored and how they're always scored, so that you can just get that much better at writing in your AP history classes. And then today, again, like I said, specifically talking about the thesis. So the above link is a rubric created for this essay. Please, at any time, if you want to go check it out, go do so. There it is. So what we want to always do is understand the question, and there it is. It's also called the prompt, however you want to call it. So let's do that right now. And let's go in here. And again, please bear with me as I write here. Evaluate the extent is immediately, it's going to be something that versus something. For those of you that have kind of like an athletic mindset, this is apples versus oranges. This is cars versus trucks, boys versus girls. If you're a debate student, then you're going to debate for, and then an opponent next to you would be debating against. And anytime you see that those words, evaluate the extent, you know that you're about to write a comparison essay. You just have to know that. You have to know that you're about to, there's going to be, immediately I know that this essay is going to start with the word although. So, I mean, it's that kind of thought process. And then you've got these other words that are in here, which to which non-Western elites. So you can bet that none of the documents are going to deal with non-Western elites, or I'm sorry, are going to be written from a Western perspective. And if they are, they're going to be written from a Western perspective regarding intimately about a non-Western. 1800 to 1900, that's the time period. So immediately I'm thinking Industrial Revolution. Here's the word that I'm probably going to write 20 times in this essay, and it's the word approaches. It's their approaches to modernizing their societies. Approaches to, and if I can say one thing, when a student starts to get off the rails, and when a student starts to go into a world that they're not going to come back from, it's because they start to ignore the question and they start to create another question. Or they want to use words that are not in the question. They want to start using their own words. And I'm going to say I wouldn't do that. I especially wouldn't do that on the day of an exam. I want to not have to sit there and come up with other things, other words that mean the same thing. Please don't do that. Use the same word over and over and over. The AP people use that word, use it right against them. Use it, just come right back with it. And again, we're talking about modernizing their society. Okay. See if I can erase this. So let's begin by predicting the documents that you might see. And again, we've already done that this is going to be a comparison question. So there's going to be some that are going to be, again, there's that word differed. There's going to be some folks that I would assume that are like pro modernization. There's going to be some folks that are anti-modernization. So keep that in mind. And think about that you're probably not going to see docs from the West. You might, but I'm sure it's going to probably be a document that emphasizes something that's going on in a non-Western world. Look for the ways that these guys are approaching modernization. I'm telling you right now, this is the biggest one right here. And this is the one where kids really start to, I see kids battling it, is they're thinking that they're going to see a bunch of different things, and when in fact they're not. Especially this year, it's a 45-minute test. They're not going to give you 5 responses to this all over the place. Maybe the geography's all over the place. Maybe the time period, maybe they're bouncing around in the time period, but I promise you, they do not want to sit there and have you come up with 5 different responses that these people came up with as far as their approach to modernization. So keep that in mind. Don't make it harder than what it is. Look for patterns, look for trends, look for things that are starting to kind of, be alike, smell alike, look alike. So there's that little thought process too. Okay. So let's get into it. So here's document 1. Sultan Abdulmajid I, ruler of the Ottoman Empire, decree initiating the Tanzimat reform. So right off the bat, let me get down here and click. Right off the bat, if I remember my world history, I really don't need to keep reading this document anymore. If I remember what Tanzimat reform is. Now, I just told you just a second ago that we need to read all the documents. We need to answer the burning question. So what's his approach? Well, I'll tell you right now, his approach is he created the Tanzimat reform. And you might say, oh, I know what that is, Mr. Fox. Is that when the Ottoman Empire tried to act just like the West? You'd be exactly right. But if you don't know that, then you got to read this entire document extremely clearly, extremely attentively. Whereas if you remember what the Tanzimat reform was, now you're reading this document just for, reassurance, just to be reassured. And sure enough, look what he says. 150 years of our former strength and prosperity, we have become weak and we need to change. And then he says, every defendant shall be entitled to a public hearing. There's one thing. That's just like you would see in the West when the West was creating its multitudes of Declaration of Independence, its constitutions, Magna Cartas, and all these things that the East had long not ever done. Owning property, being able to buy and sell property freely. Again, freedom of religious groups in this Ottoman world that is authentically Muslim. However, it is a big cosmopolitan area of all different types of religions, as you can remember. So again, if I were going to give this guy an emoji, I would say this guy is a big fan of modernization, and his approach is to act like the West. There it is. So, and again, if you didn't get that there, you would get it from your reading here. So don't fight it. There's your answer. Move on to the next one. And let me clean this up now. So there's your answer. He was for it. And I'm going to just pause that. And you can pause this at any time and write down what I'm writing down or discuss or whatever you want to do there. Moving on. Document 2, Mehmet Tamir Munif is, and I'm saying it the best I can, Ottoman statesman. And again, that's something that maybe students get involved in, is trying to pronounce these things correctly, incorrectly, whatever. Just do your best to move on and get to the answer. So we're looking for, we've already got one guy that says that he's for it. I bet this guy, he's from the Ottoman Empire too, about 30 years later. I can assume that he probably wants to modernize as well. Let's just see what happens here. Just as an uneducated individual is inferior to an intelligent one, so as a comparison might be drawn between states that refuse to apply modern civilization. Notice how he's not really answering the question for you conveniently. He's not answering the question because this is not why he wrote this, or this is not why he said this. So let's just keep going here and see what I'm driving at. Consider what happened a few years ago in China. Around 20,000 Europeans easily defeated the Chinese state there. And of course, he's referencing the Second Opium War. The Chinese emperor was angry, and he only had himself to blame because the military was ignorant of new technological warfare. Had the Chinese not stubbornly insisted on preserving their civilization, they would not have been subjected to humiliation by foreigners. So he's not really giving you any kind of answer outright as to what his approach to modernization is. He's basically sharing with you what's happened to people who haven't modernized. So he's still giving you an answer. And that's what your job is to do, is to answer that question. So again, I would come up here, big emoji, smiley face. The last guy was trying to modernize. This guy's trying to modernize. The last guy was trying to modernize through a political perspective. This guy is trying to modernize with a modern military. And that's what he's trying to say. And again, if I were to look at this, I'd look at that date, 1862, makes perfect sense. About a decade prior, this man was no doubt involved in some form of the Crimean War, which took place right there in downtown Ottoman Empire, where the Westerners soundly defeated the Russians because the Russians were still using horses and swords and old antiquated cannons. And the Western world came in there, the British especially, and just really destroyed the Russians. And again, that's all historical stuff that I know and that many students know, but sometimes you may not know that on the day of the exam. Just refer to answering the question. This guy's not giving it to you like in a spoon. You have to kind of come at it from a different perspective, though. And this is where kids would misinterpret this document this year at the reading. They would sit there and they would turn this into a Chinese document all to itself, which I guess in a way is fine, but you're missing a real easy 2-inch putt by just saying this guy is sharing with you the ills of not having a modern military, which obviously he would like to either continue or to ramp up. So this would go with document 1 fairly easily. Let's do one more document. And so there's your answer, and I'll leave it here for a second so you can pause. Document 3. It's the Boat of Purity and Ease, a luxurious marble pavilion at the Qing Summer Palace in Beijing. So this is in China. It's rebuilt by the Empress Siqi, 1893, and the Empress was accused of embezzling the funds to rebuild the structure by convincing the treasury that the money would be used to build a modern navy. The Summer Palace was only open for use by the royal family. Again, they're not outright telling you what her approach is, but you can start to piece the things together here and see that she is not, it's not looking a whole lot like it was over there with the other two. So document 3 smells a little different. If I were going to give her an emoji, I would say she is not for it. She does not like it because she's built this colossal rock boat that will not float. It will not go anywhere. It will not do any kind of battle. And again, if you're a history student of China during the 1800s, you know that China is steadily going backwards at any point that it can. It's fighting itself. There's the Taiping Rebellion. There's the Boxer Rebellion. We've already mentioned the Opium Wars from 1890s and 1830s, 1840s. Just all kinds of problems, and it's because of people like this. Empress Siqi is just tone deaf. She's tone deaf. She still thinks that they're the center of the world. They still think that they're the part of that they are the world. Meanwhile, here comes all this new modernity from the West: boats, weapons, new styles of trade, capitalism versus mercantilism versus. You get my point. That again, ensconced in their old culture and not moving into. So again, her approach is to undermine modernity. Her approach is to steal money, embezzle funds, and then spend it on the way things used to be. So she's trying actually undermine. So again, you could go that. So now we got doc. If I can do this, doc 1 and 2, which are kind of like on one side of we want to become modern, and doc 3 so far. I'm sorry, that should be a doc. 3 is against it. So you got 2 that are for and 1 that's against. Again, don't go looking for a bunch of varying, ways that this could go. So there you go. We can start to see how this DBQ is starting to go, and we're starting to see now how our thesis statement is going to go. And again, I'm going to let you take a look at docs 4 and 5, so we can speed this up and get to the actual thesis. Let me clean this up. Okay, so what did the doc suggest? So like we've already discussed and kind of hashed out, doc 1, doc 2, and doc 5 seem to kind of all go together. These are guys that are trying to become modern, either through their political systems, by their reform movements, or by using a modern military, or by using a modern factory system. And then there's doc 3 and doc 4. Their approach was to undermine it, was to labor on how ineffective the West is, or modernization, and how their people probably couldn't do it, and things of that nature. Did you notice how in doc 5, the leader, the non-Western leader, was all about trying to become a modern marvel, whereas his people fought him, and his people were much like the leaders of China and Russia, and how they thought that they probably couldn't use that. So again, we can now start to see, get down here and erase this, and now we can start to see what's going on. Ottoman, and it's just what I've already said, and I'll go ahead and you can stop this and pause it at any time and hash it out yourself. Now you're ready to write this great thesis. Let's do that then. Notice how I start off the thesis, although, because it begins the moment of trying to evaluate the extent. It does exactly what they would like for me to do. Although there were non-Western elites who, you could also start with however there were, or I just like the word although there were non-Western elites who denounced the modernization, they were slow to move to it and even tried to undermine it. And again, everything that I'm saying right there is true. There were other non-Western elites from the same time period who approached modernization by trying to copy the West, such as promoting civil rights, building modern militaries, and establishing modern factories. What I like about this is now you know exactly what you're going to talk about in the next paragraph. You know exactly what you're going to talk about in the next paragraph. You see what I'm saying? Now you've got a good start to your, this is a great thesis. This is worth a point. And now you're about to get in here and start talking about these two documents and all that. So there's another point that you're going to, you're just getting more and more points. It's all organized. You've laid it out for your reader, etc. Where kids get off, and what I saw this year was trying to describe all 5 documents individually with individual responses to the prompt. Such a problem, such a problem. Or they're trying to cheat. And what I mean by trying to cheat is certainly not trying to cheat by looking things up and things like that. I'm not saying that. I'm saying they're trying to cheat the system. You must read the documents before you start to write a thesis. You have to. And that's part of the skill. Even if I was writing an essay that wasn't a DBQ, I've got to prep before I start to write. I can't just sit there and just start writing. It's going to be discombobulated. I won't have all my ideas down yet. But this way, when I read all the documents, take 5-7 minutes and read the documents and get that good answer to every document, you come away with something like this. Understand too, some of the documents are not going to tell you outright what the answer is. They won't, because they weren't written that way. You have to come to your own conclusion by using what you see in the document as to what this non-Western elite's approach was. And you can start going through those documents 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 all the way down the line. Now, we didn't talk anything about point of view. We didn't talk about hipping these documents. We didn't talk about contextualization. We didn't talk about any kind of complexity. This is simply how to write a thesis statement so that you can get started writing a good essay. And again, you can't write a good thesis statement without understanding that question and having a question. So again, hope this helps. Be looking forward to other videos that I'll be sending out. And we'll try to go through all of these documents. We'll hash them out. We will also look at all of the how to hip a document. I've got that video out there. What would be good contextualization, etc. And again, I want to go back to this. Notice this thesis statement has no history in it. I'm not putting out any outside information in here. This is my thesis. It's a paragraph that could sit by itself. It's 1 sentence long. You know, if you want to put some periods in there, you certainly probably could, and turn it into a couple of sentences, 2 or 3 sentences. And that's exactly what the AP people would expect. In some cases, it's either a sentence or a series of sentences of which you're going to try and make this claim that you can sit there and show evidence to for the rest of your essay, which you certainly could for this. Hope this helps, and be looking forward to other videos coming your way.